Good evening again, friends. We are in the one and only B-Cycle, my home away from home. This is my Starbucks. This is my other place. It lyrics most things on a bike, to be honest. And tonight I am trying to solve a problem because a few nights ago, as some of you know, I got a bike stolen, and I am now trying to just put together a winter commutery thing. And I found this GT Avalanche up the B-Cycle, which is basically just a little bike co-op. There are in lots of different places across the world. But we have a stuck bottom bracket. Now, this is an issue that sometimes is very difficult, but I'm going to show you my go-to method to deal with it. Max, if you want to show them the tools.
Sure.
This is pretty much everything you're going to need, and this is what you're going to need for a typical square taper bottom bracket, which is what you will find on most bikes. Now, this has got like a weird spline on it. It's a Truvitum spline, which means it's specifically for Truvitum cranks, which don't really make a huge amount of anymore. And to be honest, I just want to put a regular square taper one on it because there's a nice one set upstairs, something like that, do nicely. But what you will find is quite often, if you just put, this is a bottom bracket cartridge removal tool, pretty standard. Shimano make them, Part Tool make them, Unior, a fucking million other places make them. Often if you put this on, you might find that whoever put it on in the first place maybe fucked the teeth up in a little bit, but this actually sits fine. I did have to clean these up, it was so full of gunk. I spent about 5 minutes cleaning all the shit out of it. But you'll notice if I put that on, it just doesn't sit quite right. And when you put a big spanner on that, and you go to turn it, it quite often will slip, and you'll destroy the teeth, and then it's stuck, and then the bike is fucked because you can't replace the bottom bracket. So I'm going to show you a trick I learned a couple of years ago that has saved me and customers a lot of frames over the years. So what you're going to need, this only works, I'll say this again, this only works if you have like a square taper one, because the square taper ones are designed to take a bolt that pulls the crank on. So what you then want to do is you can put a bolt of that same kind of size in inside the little threaded piece in the middle. Then you're going to put your crank tool, your bottom bracket removal tool on. Then, depending on how much metal you have here, you will need a variety of washers. I have at my disposal a variety of washers. So pop that on there. I then pop this nut on. This is going to take a little bit. And thankfully my actually no, not thankfully. My editing skills are terrible, so you guys are just going to have to live through this one. It's going to take me a minute. So you're going to hold the crank with the other side. These are water pump pliers. It's technically a plumbing tool, but you know, it's metal. You can just grab onto it like so, and then you've got that in place. Then on the other side, you're going to need to tighten this nut until it puts enough compression onto the cartridge removal tool that it doesn't then wiggle around. But thankfully this fucking spanner is so fucking good. I say that with jest. Right. So it doesn't need to be mental tight, but that's tight enough. You just want it to not be, in fact, I'll tighten it up a little bit more. But you just want it to be tight enough that this is fairly snug in there, so that when I put my big friend on, it'll come off. Now this might come off because I have pre-loosened this, and then I was like, oh, it worked. Sick. Let's do the video. And it is going to come off. Crucially, if you are working on British, American, to be honest, most bikes, unless it's French or Italian, if it's French or Italian, fucking, I don't know, guess. In terms of what direction you need to turn this, the way I remember it is if you start with what direction pedals go on. So the way I remember it is if you're on the drive side, the pedal goes on righty-tighty, it goes on the normal way. If you're on the opposite side, the pedal goes on the opposite way, so it will go on lefty. And then the only other thing you have to remember is that bottom bracket threads are the opposite of pedal threads. So if you're stood on this side, which is the non-drive side, because the derailleur's on that side, then what you've got is, you've obviously got a pedal that will thread on left-hand threaded, which means the bottom bracket is right-hand threaded. And if you're on the other side, the pedal goes on the normal way, right hand, which means that the bottom bracket goes in the opposite way. That's how I remember it. I'd probably rewind that 3 or 4 times and listen to it over again because that took me a long time to fucking remember, but I remember it. So you're going to go this way because that's regular, because it's the opposite of the pedal. We're on the left side. Do you get it, Max? He gets it. Fucking awesome. So on the off chance that this massive fucking wrench doesn't take it off, it didn't take it off the first time, you will need leverage. You will need a breaker bar. This is a piece off of an old frame that we cut up. You put said breaker bar on said spanner, and then you just, well, you yonk it on there. It's not quite as dramatic as it would have been. What you will find as you do this is that this will start to tighten up, because as you're loosening it, you're pulling it in towards the nuts. So you will have to loosen this as you go. The water pump pliers back on the other side. Actually, I don't need to do that because that's fine. So that's, oh, wait a minute. Grab the other side. And just loosen this off. And you can see there the threads are starting to work their way out. Not gonna lie, I didn't know if this was kind of a bit of a crux move of if this didn't work, then I was not going to be able to ride this bike. But it has. So hopefully it fits me. But yeah, there we go. That's that bit off there. And now you can undo it by hand. A little tip as well, when you are then putting the new bottom bracket back in, always, in fact I'll show you real quick. Let me get this off. Get that out of there. Always. Fucking come on, baby. Oh, last bit's always a bugger. It's just like, oh, you know, you're almost there, but you know, you're gonna have one last little test before it's really done. Now the real question will be whether or not the other side comes off. That will then decide how sad or happy my next video is. So that's loose enough that now that I can take that off with hand force. And as this is coming out, I'm looking at the threads, and the threads look pretty good. So I'm pretty happy that the other side's probably going to be in good nick. So when you go to reinstall this, you obviously clean all this up. But something that's very important is that when you put it on, don't put it on and then immediately whack a spanner on it and fucking go for it, because the threads inside here, as you can see, are quite thin. There's not a massive amount to them, and you're putting quite a lot of force through them. So when you put it in initially, put it in with your hand. Go as far as you can. You should be able to go like halfway up the thread, maybe even further. That's almost the entire, that's about three threads shy of all the way in. So what's that as a fucking percentage-ish? That's at least 6, 8. Yeah. So I got it about 75% of the way in with my hand. You shouldn't, that could be taken many different ways. You you don't want to put it in with the spanner to begin with, because you can cross thread it. And I'm going to stop talking now, essentially, because, well, that's essentially it, and I could go on for fucking days. Well, that's how you get out, or that's one way you can get out a sticky bottom bracket, stuck bottom bracket, if you need to save a frame. Enjoy, good luck, and yeah, ride safe.